He thought it was just another ordinary shift, a mop in his hands, silence in the halls, nothing unusual. But the moment a trained fighter locked eyes on him, everything changed. What started as a friendly challenge carried something far darker beneath the surface: arrogance, prejudice, and the quiet cruelty of being underestimated. He didn't ask for a fight, yet somehow he became the target. What happened next would silence the room, shatter assumptions, and leave a question we all need to face. How much strength does it take to fight more than just fists? He was used to being invisible. Most nights, after the long hours of scrubbing floors and hauling buckets, he slipped out the back door with little more than a nod to the security guard. The world rarely noticed him, the black janitor who kept the gym spotless while others trained under bright lights. To him, it wasn't about glory or recognition. It was steady work, a paycheck, a way to keep moving forward. But in that gym, status was everything. Trophies lined the walls, fighters boasted about their victories, and respect was measured in bruises and belts. He never complained, never asked for more. He simply cleaned, listening to the thuds of fists against bags, the grunts of men chasing strength. What most didn't see was the quiet fire in him. Every day he watched and learned. Footwork, rhythm, the art of balance. Not as a competitor, but as someone who knew that survival often required more than endurance. And then came the night that changed everything. A seasoned black belt, known for his pride as much as his power, decided the janitor was an easy laugh, a body to test his skill for fun. The crowd chuckled, expecting nothing more than humiliation. But what none of them realized was this. The man with the mop had carried battles his whole life, ones no trophy could ever measure. Something was about to happen in that ring that no one could have predicted. They call. Laughter started before he even stepped forward. To the fighters in the gym, this wasn't a match. It was entertainment. A black belt against a janitor? To them, the outcome was obvious. Whispers spread through the crowd like wildfire, and smirks lit up faces that had never seen him as anything but a man with a mop. "Come on," the fighter said, his tone sharp with arrogance. "It's just for fun," but everyone knew it wasn't about fun. It was about pride, about putting someone in his place. The janitor hesitated, his chest tightening as dozens of eyes locked on him. He'd been here before, not in the ring, but in life. The same smirks, the same disbelief, the same quiet message. "You don't belong here." Still, he stepped forward. His palms were sweaty, his heart beat fast, but he stood tall. He knew this wasn't just a fight. This was every insult he'd swallowed, every time his worth had been dismissed, every time his skin had become a target before he even spoke. The crowd circled. The black belt smirked, bouncing lightly on his feet, showing off with quick jabs into the air. He wanted the audience to laugh, to see dominance before the first strike was even thrown. The janitor, though, remained still, watching, breathing, waiting. The first blow came fast, a sweeping kick meant to end things before they began. Gasps erupted, but the janitor sidestepped, his reflexes sharper than anyone expected. For a moment, the laughter paused. He wasn't supposed to move like that. The fighter pressed harder, throwing punch after punch, each one faster, heavier, designed to humiliate. But with every strike, the janitor blocked, shifted, endured. And with each deflection, the atmosphere in the room changed. Smirks turned into furrowed brows, whispers turned into stunned silence. He wasn't winning yet, but he wasn't losing either. And that alone was a victory no one had imagined. But then the tone shifted. Frustration seeped into the black belt's movements. What started as a friendly spar became something darker. His strikes grew reckless, fueled by the disbelief that a janitor, a black janitor, could stand against him. Sweat dripped down his face, his jaw clenched, his pride unraveling with every failed attempt to dominate. The janitor felt it too. Every strike carried more than fists. It carried generations of dismissal, the weight of being underestimated, the sting of every door slammed in his face. And though he wasn't fighting for glory, he realized something. This moment wasn't just his. Everyone watching would remember what they saw here tonight. The crowd leaned in, their laughter silenced, their eyes wide. Something was building, something none of them expected. And then came the moment that changed everything. The gym went silent except for the pounding of fists and the sharp cracks of impact echoing off the walls. The black belt, red with fury, unleashed a storm of punches, each one harder, angrier than the last. It was no longer about sparring. It was about breaking him, a fist connected with the janitor's ribs, forcing the air from his lungs. Pain seared through his side, but he refused to bend. He staggered, yes, but his eyes stayed locked, steady, unshaken. The black belt sneered, convinced the end was near. But what no one expected was resilience carved from years of being pushed aside, of swallowing every insult, of fighting battles no crowd had ever seen. With each hit, the janitor absorbed more than pain. He absorbed their doubt, their disbelief, their prejudice. And then, it happened. The fighter lunged with a wild swing, desperate to finish it. In a flash, the janitor pivoted, slipping past the punch, his body moving with precision he'd never been given credit for. Before anyone could blink, his counterstrike landed, clean, powerful, undeniable. The black belt stumbled, crashing to the mat with a thud that shook the entire room. The silence that followed was deafening. Every face froze. Every smirk vanished. The man they mocked, the one they thought beneath them, now stood tall, breathing hard, battered but unbroken. For the first time, the crowd wasn't laughing. They were witnessing something bigger than a fight. It was a reckoning, a moment that shattered the unspoken hierarchy, exposing just how blind their prejudice had made them. The black belt tried to rise, pride burning hotter than pain, but his legs betrayed him. He stayed on the floor, looking up at the man he thought would be easy to crush. And the janitor? He didn't gloat. He didn't smile. He simply stood there, chest heaving, carrying the weight of centuries of underestimation on his shoulders. In that moment, one truth became impossible to ignore. Sometimes the strongest fighter isn't the one with the belt. It's the one who's been forced to fight every single day just to be seen. When the dust settled, the crowd struggled to process what they had just witnessed. A janitor, someone they had dismissed as invisible, unworthy, expendable, had stood toe-to-toe with a champion and refused to be broken. It wasn't just a fight. It was a mirror held up to their faces, exposing the arrogance, the prejudice, the way they had reduced a man's worth to his job, his skin, his silence. The black belt eventually rose, but the belt around his waist no longer carried the same weight. The true victory belonged to the man who had been underestimated all along. He didn't win because of glory or fame. He won because he showed the world that dignity and resilience can't be stripped away, no matter how many times society tries. For the janitor, that night was more than survival. It was proof that his struggle wasn't in vain, that the battles fought quietly in the shadows mattered. But as he walked out of the gym, bruised but unbowed, he knew the fight outside those walls would never end so cleanly. Because in the real world, the blows don't always come from fists. They come from assumptions, discrimination, and systems designed to keep people in their place. And that's the larger truth. This wasn't just his story. It's the story of millions who are underestimated, overlooked, and written off before they're given a chance to be seen. So the question isn't whether he proved himself that night. He did. The question is, when will we stop forcing people to fight for the respect they should have been given all along?